So my name is Joel Baird. I'm with the Ghiordes Knot. We're the showroom that's sponsoring this. And we're really happy to have our guest here today, Amy Flurry and Ashulada. So they are, obviously, as you know, Amy's here talking about the do-it-yourself public relations. And then they're also here to talk about their line that they have with Aloka Home, that we have the trunk show across the hall. So to get started, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about Amy. And Amy Flurry is a nationally recognized expert on DIY PR and the author of 2 acclaimed books, Recipe for Press, the original guide to pitching your story, and Recipe for Press Designer Edition, a tailored follow-up filled with tools interior designers, architects, and other trade professionals can use to capitalize on today's evolving media landscape. With over 2 decades of editorial experience writing for top print and digital publications, Amy has become a trusted resource for creative professionals seeking meaningful media exposure. In addition to her publishing and consulting work, Amy is the co-founder of Aloka Home, a furnishings company based in Athens, Georgia, known for transforming vintage Kantha textiles that were hand-stitched 60 to 80 years ago in India into bespoke pillows, benches, and fashion accessories. And we have some of those here, and some of you have seen them across the hall. We're proud to present Aloka's handcrafted benches at the Ghiordes Knot also. So there's a lot of, you see, benches and stools. Following her presentation, we invite you to join us across the hall in Suite 90 for a book signing with Amy and to explore the Aloka Home Trunk Show. We also had some food and drinks over there. So before we start with Amy, I was just going to highlight a couple things here. We have the throws over there that we've had for a little while if you've seen them in the past. They're all very unique. And again, they use the same materials for the pillows and for the stools. There's some clothing over there that's, again, all one-of-a-kind pieces. And then they're introducing, this is the first time we've had and have seen their bespoke collection. It's called Mosaics. So these can be done in, there's 5 different colorways, 5 different kind of color stories. You can custom make pillows for a bed, comforters for a bed, the actual bed, and the headboard with a cover on it to go with everything. So we will have access to all of that in the showroom too. So with that, I hope you have a wonderful day, and we want to welcome Amy Flurry here.
Thank you to our friends at Ghiordes Knot for having us and giving us a chance to share Aloka and to share my recipe for press with you. Are most of you interior designers here? I know you're an interior designer. I'm kidding. Most everyone's interior designers. Are you overwhelmed with the amount of communications you're supposed to be doing? Yes. And are you unsure why you're supposed to be doing it all? A little bit, or you, yep. I think that the reason that we are here today and that I'm in a design center is because you all as interior designers have more opportunity than most any other industry for visibility. And there's a reason for that we'll discuss. But it is a little bit overwhelming that you're supposed to be an interior designer and a master at what you've learned to do for a business and a professional. So you're supposed to be the business person. You are the business person as well. And now you're supposed to be all editors and marketing pros for your business as well. So while I know that can be overwhelming, there are ways that you can prepare yourself for what it looks like when you do get press. You can understand why you are even seeking press or what it can do for you, and then how to be prepared. But this is visibility to me. It's not just like getting in a magazine. It's all of these things. And they're all a little bit different, but they all have fundamentals. And that's what we're going to talk about. I'm talking about this, and why I've been talking about this for so long now, over a decade, actually, since I wrote my first book, is I was an editor, and I sought out and told stories I sought out people like you and people who made things, people who made special things, and I told their stories. And when I wrote for national magazines, I was a freelancer for a lot of the major magazines. And when I transitioned out of that, I had so many people ask me, how do I approach people like you? How do I get press? I'm not quite ready for a publicist yet. I want to get ready, but I know there are some things that I can do. So what can I do before I actually need a publicist? That's why I wrote the book. I just had the same questions, and as somebody who's been on the other side of the table, there are just subtle things that signal you get it, you're going to be easy to work with, and you're ready for press. And that was the genesis, really, of Recipe for Press. Now, and I have written 2 books, and the second one is the book signing I'm doing today, just across the way. The funny thing about life is that now I don't get to just talk about this. I am a founding partner in a local home, so I have to practice it too. So I understand what it means to be a business person, how much time you actually have to put at this. It's not just me talking about it and saying, okay, go do it, it's going to work. It's understanding that you really don't have time for this, so the time that we are going to dedicate to it, let's know why we're doing it. And so that is a LOCA, and that's where we really would love for you to join us at Ghiordes Knot after this talk. So this is, I think, what we all should just digest. Is it's not about what you've been, it's not about who you're like, it's really about where you want to go with your business and how can that support the answer to this question. As a PR professional, as somebody who supports others in PR, it's really difficult for any pro to help you with your goal if you can't tell us where you want to go. What do you want it to do? So if you haven't thought about it, it's a good starting point. Because while you might say, I would really love to be an Elle Decor, but what you really need are more projects locally, then those 2 things don't match. You would get more local projects by being in your local and regional magazines, by connecting with the newsletters of design centers, by all the number of ways. So do you understand? That's easy enough, right? But having been on the editor side of the table, everybody wanted to be an Oprah. You know, they've got a product, you want to be an Oprah. So you've got a project, you want to be in a national. But really, you want to think about, like, where do you start? Where is your community? It's local. And then it kind of pans out to regional. And then you start meeting more people, and you get used to what that dance is with editors, what they need, how they act. And that's how you progressively get to a place where you may need a publicist down the road to help you with all of the requests or to take you to the next level. But any national editor would always want to see that you are a big fish in your own community, which makes sense, doesn't it? Let's see. And there are so many places now where you can get published. It used to just be the print publications, but you have so many opportunities, which is, again, a little bit of cause of the overwhelm. How many places can you name? I know somebody in the back row there who just walked in has been in more things than just magazines, and they're important. They may be even more important than being in print, but a lot of publicists will hear, I just want to be in print. Let's name the ways. Where do you think you can be published? Local newspaper. So then we pan out a little bit, regional, more local than regional. You've got even these days, all of these have their online versions, right? Then you've got this new area called hyperlocal that is really strong in larger cities. And they are newsletters, and they are very specifically targeted zip codes of print publications and even newsletters. But if you want to work in very specific areas of any city or any zip code, then those are the places you want to be. And they may not look or feel like much. They may not feel like that big, heavy publication, but does it get you work? It does. That gets you work. The hyperlocal, special interest. So PR pros are really good at like finding all of the places you can be published, not just the obvious. So say you were an alum of the business school of a college. This is Gail Davis, and she's an interior designer in New Jersey, and she's on the cover of her college magazine. So you kind of have to think about these kinds of things. Where do your peers get published? Where do those people who get published all the time get published? Do you want a good roadmap for where you want to get published? Look at their press page. But if they have a publicist, those publicists are great at unearthing all kinds of situations. Trade, the business of home. How many of you subscribe or read the business of home? That's a good one. I mean, that is the bellwether of what's going on. And they even have a podcast specifically for interior designers called Trade Tales. So you just have to kind of, before you do anything, understand what the opportunities, where do they live, and start making yourself a little bit of a roadmap. And then decide, does this pair well with my ultimate goal? And ask yourself what that ultimate goal is. National organizations have magazines. High Point Market, they have their own publications. They have their own newsletters. Everybody's got newsletters. Everyone's got online versions. That's where the overwhelm really then starts to set in. Is like, now what do I want? Of all of this, like what am I going after? And even marketplaces, First Dibs, are any of you members of First Dibs? You'll see designer profiles. Those are very strong places, very difficult places to get, but they're profiles on great interior designers. These opportunities are everywhere. You just have to start paying attention and putting together. And this is what any publicist would do for you. But what you should know is when you sign up with a publicist, we could just talk dollars here. You're signing up for $3,000 to $5,000 kind of baseline a month, and higher if you go to a bigger city. You're asking somebody to do something very fast for you unless you can sustain that monthly for years. Because it takes years. It takes time to get these placements. And you're asking people, you're paying them for the relationships that they've built over time. So let's say you don't have that in your budget, then why not build those relationships by yourself? That's DIY PR. Do what you can do to get to a place where you might need that publicist. But there's a lot of things. And having been an editor, what people didn't understand is that they felt like they couldn't approach me. They felt like they needed somebody else to do it on their behalf. But that wasn't the case at all. It's just that when you do approach, when you do show up at a panel and you meet an editor and you introduce yourself, you don't use that opportunity to pitch your project. You are building a relationship. You are saying, my firm's name is, and I'm so happy you came, and I can't wait to share a project with you. And then you let the next person shake their head. But that's building relationships. It takes time. I sound like a mother. But it's kind of common sense. But for a lot of people, how you get press is just a big mystery. Now we have collaborations, and now we have even brands getting in on the game. Brands have magazines now. I could rattle off a few. I know Urban Electric has one of the most beautiful magazines. Schumacher started a magazine called Frederick. Beautiful magazine. But if you use a vendor over and over and over again, then look at their blogs. Look, they are all having to think about communications too. And that relationship, so you're going to just keep hearing me say relationship, that's a good start. You don't go to somebody that you don't use and say, I'm just dying to be on your blog, you know. You go to people whose work you use, because we're going to talk about why, but could anybody guess why? Take a stab. What? It promotes them. And you know who has the better pictures? The designers do. And the manufacturers have to do the same thing we're talking about now. Nobody can really escape it. Your dentist can't even escape it. I can't even get my call from my dentist anymore. Now we've gone to a new program, you know, where they've got to send a newsletter and a text. I just want that call. You know, I just want Amy to have called me and reminded me of my dentist appointment, but they can't anymore. They have to, everybody's communicating. Everybody's got these, you know, is on social, has newsletters, needs to communicate and share well with their customers. So it's a natural thing, really, when you think about it, who is going to share what you do and who you also will share. And designers do well to share other designers and to share other vendors, or the vendors, the small vendors they use. So again, the way to really crack this and understand it is to probably get more than a 20-minute session, and that's probably why I wrote a book on it, and you can get the book after the talk. There's a little more in it, but this is where I was coming from, was just that think like you're on the other side. Think as if you were putting together this magazine and you want to be in the section that it kind of makes sense. It's like you have this hunch. You're like, I see people like me in that section. That's a good hunch. You know, do you have the picture that looks like it belongs there already? That's being prepared for press. And you know, if you were the editor of that page, would you put you there? For what reasons? And start to answer those questions for yourself, and you're getting closer at getting into that page. That's kind of thinking like an editor. This is how an editor sees a home project. Oftentimes you get your best project photograph and you're like, I am so ready to get my first project published. And anybody that's had projects published will tell you that it's hard to get a full project published. Those are the prize spots. And you know, I was on a panel with Traditional Homes editor-in-chief a couple weeks ago at High Point Market. She says she's got 12 spots, so she's got 12 spots because they're a quarterly. She's got 12 spots a year for the hundreds, if not thousands, of projects that she's being pitched. And think about that. So do you want to go for the trad home, or do you want to get a full story in your regional magazine that your potential audience reads that might then give you and contact you for a project after? But this is how we also might see one project. You might think, you know what, I've invested a lot of money in photographing this project because that's the photos, you know. The photos kind of underpin your website, your social media. They're not going to come back and shoot this project because they don't have the budget to. So, you know, you've made an investment. And now maybe instead of seeing it as one full project, you see it as 4 different placements. That's how a publicist thinks. That's how an editor thinks. How can we maximize this one, you know, investment, or this one, really my best work is in this project. How do we make the most of it? And this is how you might think of it. Maybe you see a small space story in one of the rooms. Maybe it's a statement lighting story. That's a trend story. Maybe it's a great kitchen because all magazines and publications love to focus on the kitchens. Maybe you want to make sure you ask the photographer always to get not just vertical shots of kitchens, but always the horizontal. And then the indoor-outdoor story. But you read these places, so you know what I'm talking about, right? It's not just always just one project and the story of that project. And this might make better sense for you as a business thinking like this than, I've got this one story to place and I'm going to sit on it for 2 years until it gets in the Veranda magazine. And then there's potential in you as a story. So I think these are just as interesting. Of course, we want to see the work, but people might read about you and then go to your website that is made more beautiful by the pictures that you invested in. So we're back to that, talking about how important pictures are. But this is the writer and the editor's thinking is, what else is there? Where else is your studio in an emerging part of a city? That's a hyper-local story, We all know the under 40s. Could I be an expert? Could I give quotes to House Beautiful online? This is an entry into working with a group of editors like House Beautiful, is to be available for quotes and to be responsive to when they need them. Any number of ideas, but these are mine. And then always research before you pitch. So just like any business, any company, when somebody has done a little bit of work before they approach you. As an interior designer, probably, I imagine you get, surely people look at your work, but if they haven't, right? If they're talking to you and they don't know your point of view as an interior designer. Am I mistaken, or no? I'm not mistaken. So same with editors. You get pitched and you're like, wow, they have not even opened this magazine, because if you read it, you would start to see there are formulas, and if you see somebody like I said, and you have this hunch, because you're seeing somebody kind of like you, then they're looking to fill that spot issue after issue with someone like you. That's a good sign. But if you don't see stories like you, then you need to look for those publications that do. So always read. Notice the bylines, because those are the people that you're going to be pitching, and they are likely going to be at this point freelancers, so they probably have a website of their own, and they're probably writing for about 10 or 15 magazines or publications. Because these staffs are very small. So like any small staffs, I'm talking 2 to 3, they talk a lot amongst themselves. They share a lot. And they, of course, would share the bad before the good. And then, of course, if they have good, they'll share with other people like them. For example, if somebody came to me and I saw a great product and it wasn't for me when I was writing for these publications, then I would share it with another freelance writer who I thought was a good fit, But if you get a piece of press and you thought it was going to be a page and it's a quarter page, and you go and complain to that editor, then that also gets shared pretty quickly. And those things are often beyond their control, because for any number of reasons. So you want to be easy to work with, and you want to be understanding and just human. And you want to understand that these people who are in these positions really enjoy telling stories and finding new things, and they like, when people are helpful. And then again, I mentioned here, on other people's pages, other people who may be where you want to go. Maybe there are people that you can name, or designers that you can name, that you really like their path. You really like the way their story has been told by other writers. You really like their point of view and you connect with it. Look at their press page and see who's writing about them. There's your roadmap. That's just a quick and easy. I'm going to go through this fast so we can ask some questions. But there's a whole chapter in my book devoted to new. That's what the first quarter of every magazine or publication is, writing about what's new. And it doesn't always have to be brand new. It can be any number of things that make it new, but make it new to appeal to editors to get on the pages. Somebody who's given me a lot of advice shared this piece of advice, and that's my partner in Aloka, Ashu Lada, who's advised a number of businesses as well. And just as simple, knowing your direction. It's really, really hard. You'll spend a lot of time going down little paths if you don't kind of take the time to establish your direction first. So you could get there a lot faster. And of course, life is always going to be like little winding paths, but you can help yourself out by getting a sense of direction of where you want to go. And what I mean by that is not always like, oh, well, I want to be the best and I want to be in this magazine. I'm like, where are you in life? What season of life are you in? Sometimes when you have the most desire and ambition for press is when you have the least time and it's the most full season of your life. You've got kids, you're basing your business, you're onto this technology, you're supposed to, have this thriving business and be all of these things. Well, sometimes you just need to take a step back and know that there will be another season after that when you have a little more time. So if you can graduate to these things and take what I'm telling you and utilize it to create long-standing relationships, those relationships will serve you over the course of your career because those people are going to likely be still telling stories, still writing, advancing, moving to different magazines, and you'll have that relationship throughout. Pitching timeline, also in the book, but the time to pitch holiday or the time is not like when you start hearing holiday music, because most magazines put those pages together in June, national magazines. So this is kind of the timeline of digital, even you want to pitch a month or two in advance, or always planning. And editors will take good ideas and put them in folders in their computer until they're working on that issue also. So just because you don't always hear back doesn't mean that they didn't like what you're doing. Sometimes they pocket it. Again, the question that comes up a lot is what would a pitch look like? As concise as possible. Like no more than 2 short paragraphs to give the scope and the small bit of a story. All you want is somebody to respond and start asking you questions. So what is the first thing that in any email, because that's where the pitch would be, in any email, what's the first determining factor that they're going to possibly be interested? Excuse me? It's got to be a good subject line, but on a subject line, I would just be clear that new project pitch. Just don't make it fancy. Don't be creative there. So I mentioned it already, pictures. They're going to look at the picture and then they're going to read your pitch. And the pitch is not where you want to put every picture from that project. You just want to put 3 or 4. 4 is a good number to give a taste and then a link to maybe 10 to 12. But really what you're wanting to do is just get that conversation going, get them interested, get a response. And they'll take it from there. Then they'll guide you. They'll guide you. And I would say if you are not even going to follow up, I would say don't even. And this is like everything, we're busy. We're all seeing emails just slip off, and then you just may forget to follow up. But probably 75% of placements come in the follow-up. You'll hear back. You'll hear, oh, I did love it. I did mean to respond to you. But you don't want to be an over follow-upper. You want to follow up once. You want to give a little more time. And you want to understand that especially when pitching projects, it can take months. It can take It can take 6 months. It just really depends on how badly you want any one project into any particular magazine. So all you're trying to do is get a response. And if you feel like you have waited after a follow-up and you haven't heard, you just might want to let that editor know, thank you for the consideration, and I'm gonna take it. I see it may not be a good fit, and that's a courtesy. But that's enough to either let them respond, give them one more chance, or to move on. But this is why for interior designers, often getting a publicist for projects is really, really, to begin with, is you should really try on your own first, because it takes time. It takes longer to place a project than any product or any people's story. Okay. Photography, if I could only walk in and say one word, I'd just say photography and feel like I'd really, really shared a lot. You need a great picture of yourself. Some of my favorite people over here on the left. And this is not, I understand, what you show up looking like on your installation days or on the days that you are shooting your project. Where some people try to get that picture on the days that you're shooting your project, and that is a really tall ask, and it's really unfair to the photographer. But it's just two different kinds of picture taking, but you need that picture, because what if they're wanting to write about you and not, they have a place for you, but maybe not the project? You're ready, and you want to show up and support. And people that do this create relationships. And, you know, that serves you well over a lot of time. And there are plenty of opportunities. Oh, my goodness. And you're here today, so you're already doing that. And then sometimes you need an expert. So before we go into Q&As, in addition to the books, I do advise interior designers. Sometimes you just need a one-on-one to get you started and to help you create a roadmap. And I do that for designers across the country. That sometimes can streamline it for you, and when you're prepared to do the work, it does work. But it's help in that direction, and you would find that on my website. And then finally, the books, the media list, you'll find that all there, because these are just responses to people who did the work, who did Recipe for Press, and then they said, how do I find the editors? How do I find their contact list? And my team and I created this list 10 years ago that we keep updated. How do I know the timeline? We have a little tool for that. All just responses to the same questions I hear over and over. So a very tight little foundation of any good communication plan is kind of what Recipe for Press was about. And then finally, Aloka Home. So like I said, it's really a big lucky thing when, after years of advising others, you get a chance at creating a product. You get a chance to make something beautiful. And then also you get a chance to understand how hard it is, or how much of an investment of time it is to have those pretty pictures, or to pitch, or to show up, or, you know, but that's what I have in Aloka. And we work primarily with interior designers, because it's handmade material from 60 to 80 years ago. It has treatments to reinvigorate and bring it into the now, into today. It has potential for upholstery, as you can see. It's strong. It's a beautiful material. And we invite you to come after this talk and to see some of these pieces for yourself, to take some home. Ghiordes Knot is a beautiful, beautiful home for Aloka, and we're, like I said, we're just really grateful to be here today. So with that said, I'm going to take any questions, and then we can go and have a glass of wine. We could go do a book signing.